After 5 long years, I'm bringing to an end my look at the Batman and Dracula Trilogy with a review of its final installment, Crimson Mist, released in 1998. Just like its predecessors, Red Rain and Bloodstorm, it was written by Doug Mensch and features more unique and haunting artwork from Kelly Jones. Crimson Mist is easily the most insane entry in the Batman Dracula series. It's a fitting way to close off the trilogy, though, with how it purges all the evil in its disturbing Elseworlds Gotham in the most violent and excessive way possible. The gloves are off with it from beginning to end, which is why it can be so enjoyable. At the conclusion of Bloodstorm, which I covered last year, the vampiric Batman had given in to his urge to drink blood when he brutally killed his archenemy, the Joker. He would have Alfred and Commissioner Gordon enter his crypt while he slept, to stake him through the heart so he could be left at peace. Only in Crimson Mist, we learn that while Batman's physical form has been rotting away, his mind is trapped between life and death. He can think, but cannot move. He's falling into madness, and his consciousness is stuck in what he describes as false death, the punishment for his actions. Gotham City has fallen into sheer chaos. The former district attorney Harvey Dent had acid thrown in his face, resulting in severe facial and mental scarring, causing him to leave politics for good and become a criminal. We see a hooker with some free time on her hands try to pick up a new client in front of a memorial statue of Thomas Wayne, only for Killer Croc to drag her into the sewers and chomp down on her, bosom first, leaving the remains of her body floating in the muck. It's a truly disgusting sequence. Psychiatrist Jonathan Crane was a timid weakling enslaved by fear, but has found a way to master it, weaponize it. He goes after all those that tormented him throughout life. He murders a former bully from school with a hook, as blood sprays against the man's athletic trophies. I like Scarecrow's costume in this story. He has severed fingers, presumably those of his victims, tied to his costume by rope. Other villains cause mayhem in the city. The likes of Penguin, Poison Ivy, and the Riddler have all racked up a long list of kills. Commissioner Gordon meets with Alfred and expresses the admiration he had for Batman's heroism. Gotham is falling, and he no longer has the manpower to protect it. Alfred has been having nightmares of him and Gordon staking Master Bruce and regrets doing it. He's worried what will happen to the city with Batman gone, and believes there might still be a sliver of humanity left within him. Alfred goes down into the crypt and removes the wooden stake from Batman's heart. Suddenly restored to life, he scorns Alfred for his foolish mistake. He knows his body has withered away, along with his mind. He can no longer fight his bloodlust. His heart has been blackened by the curse of Dracula's bite and the blood he consumed from the Joker. Displaying the new ability of turning himself into red mist, Batman escapes the crypt and flies into the sky as a large bat monster. The Darkest Knight goes on a killing spree, draining the blood from the necks of his rogues gallery, and then cutting off their heads to prevent them from coming back as his vampire underlings. Penguin, the Riddler, who has stitches on his face and front torso in the shape of a question mark in this universe, Poison Ivy, Scarecrow, and Black Mask, and his false facers, they all meet their horrifying ends. Batman uses Scarecrow's own fear gas against him in a similar sequence to what we would see depicted in 2005's Batman Begins. The heads of Black Mask and his gang are stabbed onto the gateposts of Blackgate Penitentiary, positioned to face the cell windows to warn all the inmates inside. Batman would travel to Arkham Asylum in his red mist form and feast on the crazies. Mad Hatter and Mr. Zaz are two of the countless victims. Blood runs out of each cell and fills the halls as the once great hero works his way through the asylum. It's unbelievable to think that Batman is the one responsible for all this killing, causing orderlies to run and scream in terror. When he's done with his meal, Batman leaves a note for the warden. In the mouth of a decapitated head, he throws through his office window. It reads, "Go home. Your job is finished," in blood. Commissioner Gordon wanted the criminal filth of Gotham cleaned up, but not through murder. Killing has become natural for Batman, and he must be stopped. Gordon is forced to team up with Two-Face, Killer Croc, and their gangs, the last remaining villains in the city, to eliminate Batman before it's too late. They go to Batman's lair in the Batcave, beneath the ruins of Old Wayne Manor. Explosives are armed that will detonate and expose the deadly vampire to direct sunlight and disintegrate him. After Batman is shot by a crossbow by Gordon and seemingly falls into the abyss, Two-Face and Killer Croc turn on Alfred and the Commissioner. Alfred would end up offering himself to his master Bruce in order to heal him and give him the strength needed to save Gordon. Once he drains Alfred of blood and cuts off his head, Batman promises to end the rest of them, so there will be nothing left. Croc is impaled with a large stalactite. Two arrows caught by Batman are stabbed through both sides of Two-Face's head, and at first it appears as though Batman is going to kill Gordon as well, but he offers him the chance to trigger the trap and destroy him once and for all. The roof of the cave is opened with the explosion, and loose rocks fall, crush, and kill the Commissioner before he can get to safety. With his mission accomplished, Batman walks himself into the sunlight and disintegrates into dust, achieving the true darkness of peace, the cool shadow of eternity. Much like the other entries in the Batman and Dracula trilogy, Crimson Mist was very popular when it came out in late 1998. It would have been like no other Batman story ever published. Like I mentioned at the start, it finds a way to purge its Elseworlds universe that had been introduced in the early 90s of evil, by turning someone who was initially its principal hero in the forefront into a murderous, bloodthirsty monster, its central antagonist by its violent conclusion. The vampire Batman from this trilogy of comics turns into what is, without debate, the darkest and most disturbing version of this character we've ever seen. He turns into something far worse than any other villain he has ever faced. In Crimson Mist, I like the skinnier, decaying appearance given to him, and how after each night, each feeding, Batman looks more and more twisted and grotesque. As much insanity and fun as this story brings to the table, I do believe it is the weakest of the Batman Dracula trilogy. In Red Rain and Bloodstorm, Batman still felt like Batman and was putting up a laborious fight against the forces of darkness. Here, he just gives into it, and because he's so far removed from what the character ought to be, you're less invested in everything going on. Batman doesn't even feel like the main character anymore. If you thought my summary of the events in Crimson Mist was brief, that's because the comic doesn't really have a whole lot to say compared to the previous two. I felt a lot of it was predictable, and by about 2/3 of the way in, I have to be honest, I was getting a bit desensitized by all its violence and gore. Thematically, it's just not as strong. You don't get any sort of intriguing and layered internal conflict going on inside Batman. Like I said, he doesn't feel like the main character in this one. You follow very little of him. The extent of it is him questioning whether or not he should keep killing and maintain the limitless power and immortality he has, or if he should allow himself to be defeated and return to the endless darkness that is death. Batman's occult advisor, Ariane, makes another appearance in Crimson Mist as well, but it feels like a pointless retread of what had come before, and doesn't move the plot forward in any significant way. Batman asks her if there's a way to defeat him. She says she doesn't know, and then he gets all pissy and leaves. It's like she was included just because she was in the last two stories. They had to check off that box. I do like the sequence, though, where he comes to the realization that once all the criminals in Gotham have been killed and fed on, he will have to switch his focus to innocence in order to sustain himself. Eventually, he will surely find brides, create his own army, and become an even worse vampiric force than even Count Dracula was. He understands that either he must fall or all of humanity will. That's a scary thought. Even though this original incarnation of Vampire Batman and his world came to an end in Crimson Mist, they have popped up throughout the DC Comics multiverse in the years since. In the Infinite Halloween special from 2007, there's a short story in it called Red Rain Bloodlust, narrated by the Mad Hatter, that depicts Batman murdering Dick Grayson's parents in an alley. And the following year, in Countdown Presents The Search for Ray Palmer, Red Rain, we see that Vampire Batman had bitten Grayson and turned him into his undead sidekick, Robin. During the Convergence event in the 2010s, there was also a story where Swamp Thing travels to the world of the Batman Dracula Trilogy and teams up with Vampire Batman to destroy a horde of pale vampires led by a new vampire queen. After she's defeated, all of the vampires revert back into humans, except for Batman, because he had been bitten by Dracula. He and Swamp Thing then watch the sunrise before he willingly disintegrates. It's taken me 5 years, but I've finally completed my reviews of the entire Batman and Dracula trilogy. All in all, I think it's one of the greatest trilogies there's ever been in comics, or at the very least, one of the most creative and unique from a conceptual standpoint. Let me know your thoughts on the stories down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell icon for notifications, and become a producer for my channel over on Patreon if you can. Thank you all for watching Halloween 2024. Have a happy and safe Halloween. Take care.